Hey everyone, Jim and Chris back. We got a pretty big subject here, commercial versus residential real estate. Now Chris and I have done both, but we definitely play very strongly into the residential realm for lots of reasons, not only for ourselves, but for our investors. You know, we were reading something today that was absolutely fascinating, which I don't know if you want to expand on or you want me to talk about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we were, first thing this morning, I get a text from a good friend of mine about a Dallas-based REIT that is giving back, and take this, imagine this, giving back 17 hotels that they own, all with equity. But the problem was they couldn't get refinanced.
Giving them back to the bank.
Giving them back to the bank. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Yeah. So this REIT owns these 17 hotels, and they own more, but these 17, they've chosen to give back to the bank, and not very voluntarily either, but if their choices are they cannot get refied, they've been forced to. And that puts it in quite of a different situation than most of the residential. And I think that's something that Chris and I, when we've always been, we've had our own funds before and again, work heavily in the residential, we've seen this difference in commercial real estate versus residential.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty is in particularly in Florida, but in residential in general, people keep coming to Florida, population keeps growing. So when you keep putting new houses on the ground, you want to know that there's more people coming to fill them, right? Yeah. And so, so that, those numbers all work, and they're numbers that are relatively easy to see. You can see population trends in every state. You can see growth rates in every state. So, it's something that you can, kind of wrap your brain around, right? More people, you need more houses. Yeah. Well, commercial real estate is definitely a different animal. It operates a little bit differently, and it's not only dependent on the market environment from the consumer, but it's also heavily dependent on the financial markets. And right now, there's a lot of stuff that changed in the world after COVID. So you take office buildings. We're actually looking for a new office building. We're outgrowing our office building. And it is unbelievable to me how much vacant office space there is in Jacksonville. I'm going to tell you, over the last month, we've looked at maybe 600,000 square feet of vacant office, and we probably could have looked at another 600,000.
Wow.
I mean, that's how much vacant office space there is in this city right now. And I don't know how it's ever going to get filled up.
Yeah.
We
it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the Florida Blue campus, and and they built that specifically for them, and they're now leasing out space in there because that campus was designed to hold like 5,000 or 6,000 people, and at normal capacity, and today their peak capacity is 2,000 people.
Wow.
So,
they went from 5,000 to 2,000.
To 2,000. And that's just one company.
Yeah.
That's one company in Jacksonville. So and this is something that I think is happening all over the country. I mean, I'm saying Jacksonville because this is our home market. So, I'm very close to what's going on here. But, I think we're just at the beginning of seeing the issues that, like Jim just mentioned, with the hotel REIT that couldn't get refinanced. I think you're going to start seeing that in office. When you look at, office transactions that happened, these office buildings, they're not typically getting financed on 30-year loans like our investor clients are. They're typically 5, 7, maybe 10-year loan terms. And, you're going to start to see those things, rolling out. So, if somebody, refinanced their property, kind of right, when the rates were phenomenal in 2020, now, we're 3 years in.
So,
so
2 years left on the 5-year note.
Exactly. So they're looking at a refi at rates that are, could be triple.
Well, that's what scares me. The assumptions of what people were saying that they would be able to refi at, which probably was a fair assumption before this inflationary effect hit. They could be locking in 2, 3, 4% higher than what they had done their numbers at.
Right. Exactly. And so here's where you look at, again, commercial versus residential. these commercial properties, I mean, you start looking at millions of vacant square feet in one city. How does that get filled? I mean, I just don't. I mean, it takes a long time to fill that much space, and on top of it, now these office owners are getting hit with not only higher interest rates but significantly lower occupancy. And so those they just don't mesh. So I think you're going to start seeing office buildings going back to the banks. It's going to probably start as a trickle here over the next couple years, but this is a long fuse. Because these tenants have long leases. So you've got tenants that are having 5 to 10 year leases. You've got loans that are 5 to 10 year loans, and those may overlap in some way, shape, or form, or not. But you're going to start seeing that trickling effect, and I think it's going to start happening, probably in 2024 would be my guess as to when you're going to start seeing some of that inventory, distressed commercial inventory, really starting to show up in a meaningful way. And again, it's not to say that that there aren't ebbs and flows in residential. I mean, we certainly went through the pandemic when we were. We were leasing houses before we even had a certificate of occupancy on them in some cases. And now we're, at a much higher lease up time period. I think our average is 38 days right now, I think.
8 days. It was down to, I think, 8 days.
Yeah.
9 days, I think.
Right.
Parts of the pandemic, so.
So that's, if our average is 38, I mean, that means some people might still be at 8 days and some people are at 60 days. And, but it's not, it's never, I don't know if I'm going to get a tenant or not. It's, it's a matter of.
Residential, as we talked about, has replaceable tenants.
Yeah.
There's an avatar of tenants that we look for our properties: a 3-bedroom house, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath duplex, and there's a large pool of potential tenants for that. Commercial, again, let's say the good about commercial is, yes, it can be very hands-off. There can be great equity growth. You get a long-term tenant in, it could have great cash flow. But then again, with these financing issues, if you go into the short term and then it goes vacant, well, where it might say, gosh, it took 60 days to find that last tenant. That seemed like a long time. It could take 3 years to find a tenant for a commercial property. And that's where I don't think a lot of people understand the downtime. In fact, when Chris and I were going deeper into build to rent, there was obviously the temptation. We could start a fund and we could, do these value add commercials and there could be some great projections. I'm really glad we didn't continue with any of those whiteboards because again, our job, and I said this in other videos, is to take some of the risk out for all of us. And yep, there can be big payouts, but the downside of going from a 60-day vacancy to a 3-year vacancy, it's just not something we were willing to do with ourselves or our clients, not on a large scale anyway.
No, and and I'll tell you, I mean, there's one caveat to that, which is, if we start seeing a huge amount of distressed office inventory hit the market, and you're buying at incredibly low prices,
Basis, yes.
then maybe it's worth looking at. But I'll tell you something that's probably going to surprise everybody that's on the other end of this video is that we are looking for new office space. We are out of space here at our current building, and we are going to rent space. I know, we are the real estate guys that only buy stuff, that only buy real estate.
But tell them, why are you choosing to rent instead of
that's exactly,
purchase?
yeah. So, we went out and we looked in the market for an office building to purchase, and we felt, based on what we know is coming in the market, that they're all still incredibly overpriced. Yeah. The pain, anybody that's trying to sell an office building right now knows that the pain is coming. But they don't want to admit it to anybody else, and and so we're looking at these buildings and going, hey, I don't know that we want to be in this basis, a building for this basis, $150 a foot, for an office building, that was built,
As you said, we can do a 1 or 2 year lease, and if what we see is coming, then we could then look at it and assess. But what was the old expression? You don't want to grab a falling knife.
That's exactly right. And I can tell you that the knife is falling in the offers that we're getting from some of the landlords that are trying to rent a space.
Yes.
I mean, we're getting, offers for, we're trying to rent a 30,000 square foot space. And I mean, we've got offers from landlords of, free rent for the first 6 months, $900,000 in tenant improvements and buying us new furniture. I mean, all these things just to get us into the space and lock in, for a 5 or 7 year lease term. Which of course, they've got issues on their side, right? They got a vacant space, and we all know at some point they're going to be coming up for a refinance, and they got to have it filled, or they're not going to get the loan.
They need that for the underwriting.
Exactly. So so I think it's it's an interesting time. I think it's going to be a lot to see what's going to happen, particularly in the office space here to come. That being said, full disclosure, I do own an office building, but I bought it at $20 a square foot. So, and that was many, many years ago now, and that's been a great space for us to lease. But it's been great because we can offer the tenants the absolute lowest possible rent that they can get in the market, and we can make sure that that space gets full. We didn't buy it at a market price or anything close to it. So
when your basis is good, your basis is good.
Right.
And that's what we try to look for all of us in the overall portfolio. Again, lots of things to choose from out there. We have friends that have made great money in commercial, but we are taking that hedgehog approach and just doing our little digging in the same direction of build to rent, better areas, better tenants, and looking long term with it. And right now we're pretty happy with that for us and for everyone. So anyway, we just wanted to hit on this a little bit today. Lots of differences in the commercial. Can be a great hands-off approach, can have major equity gains at the right timing and long-term tenants. But right now in the times that we're seeing that, there can be a real difficulty to refinance, and tenant vacancy can go on for years. So that's a big difference, and we're glad we're avoiding that for you guys. So until next time, we'll talk to you guys then. Take care.
have a good one, everybody.